Before you trust someone completely, there is something you need to understand about human nature. The most dangerous people in your life are not always the ones who openly show bad intentions. Sometimes, the people who can hurt you the most are the ones who appear the safest. They smile, they listen, they say the right words, and they create the feeling that you finally found someone genuine. But beneath that carefully created image, something else may be happening. Carl Jung spent much of his life studying the hidden parts of the human personality. He understood that every person carries a public version of themselves, the version they want the world to see. Jung called this the persona, the social mask that helps people function in everyday life. A persona is not automatically fake. Everyone uses one. The question is not whether someone has a mask. The question is, what happens when that mask is challenged? Because sooner or later, every mask faces pressure. A person can control their words, they can prepare their stories, they can choose their expressions, they can present themselves as kind, intelligent, successful, and trustworthy. But there are moments when conscious control becomes weaker, when emotions rise, when expectations are not met, when they feel rejected, criticized, ignored, or powerless. Those moments reveal patterns. And those patterns often tell you more about someone's true character than years of casual conversation ever could. Think about someone you once trusted deeply. Maybe it was a friend, a partner, a family member, or even a colleague. At the beginning, everything seemed natural. They remembered small details about your life. They showed interest in your dreams. They made you feel valued. You believed you had finally met someone who truly understood you. But then something changed. Maybe you disagreed with them. Maybe you set a boundary. Maybe you needed support and they could not benefit from helping you. Suddenly, the person you thought you knew started behaving differently. Their tone changed. Their patience disappeared. Their kindness became conditional. And you were left wondering, was this who they always were, or did something happen? Jung would suggest that what changed was not necessarily the person. What changed was the situation that allowed their hidden patterns to emerge. This is why trust should never be built only on how someone treats you when everything is easy. Anyone can be pleasant when they are receiving appreciation, attention, agreement, and admiration. The deeper question is, who are they when life does not give them what they want? The first sign you should watch carefully is how someone responds when they cannot control the situation. A person's relationship with control reveals a great deal about their inner world. Some people appear calm and generous as long as everything moves according to their expectations. They support you when your choices align with theirs. They respect you when you agree with their opinions. They celebrate you when your success does not challenge their own identity, but when they lose influence, their behavior changes. They may become cold, they may create guilt, they may withdraw affection. They may subtly punish you for making independent decisions. At first, these behaviors can be difficult to recognize because they rarely appear dramatic. They often arrive in small moments. A friend who becomes distant because you did not follow their advice. A partner who makes you feel guilty for having different needs. A colleague who becomes defensive because someone else receives recognition. These moments are not just reactions, they are windows into someone's emotional structure. A psychologically healthy person understands that other people are separate individuals. They can disagree without feeling threatened. They can accept disappointment without trying to control the person who disappointed them. But someone who depends heavily on control often experiences another person's independence as a personal attack. Why? Because deep inside, their sense of security may not come from acceptance. It may come from being right, being needed, or being in charge. This is where many people make a mistake. They judge trustworthiness by someone's kindness when things are comfortable. But character is not measured during comfort. Character is revealed during discomfort. Anyone can act respectful when they are getting what they want. The real test is how they behave when they are frustrated. Pay attention to what happens when you say no. A simple no can reveal more than 1,000 conversations. When you refuse a request, do they respect your decision? Do they still treat you with warmth? Can they accept your boundary without trying to make you feel selfish or wrong? Or do they suddenly change? Do they make you question yourself? Do they create emotional pressure? Do they remind you of everything they have done for you? These reactions reveal whether someone values you as a person or values what you provide for them. A genuine connection allows freedom. A controlling connection requires compliance. The second sign is how someone talks about other people, especially those who are no longer useful to them. Listen carefully when someone describes their former friends, previous relationships, old coworkers, or people who disappointed them. Everyone has experienced conflict. Everyone has relationships that ended badly. Everyone has moments where they were hurt. But there is a difference between sharing pain and revealing a pattern. A person with emotional maturity can describe a difficult relationship while still recognizing complexity. They can say, "That person hurt me, but I also learned something from the experience." A person who avoids self-awareness often tells a different story. In their version, they are always the victim. Everyone else is selfish. Everyone else is toxic. Everyone else is the problem. Notice the pattern. If every person from their past is described as terrible, dishonest, or impossible, eventually you have to ask a deeper question. Is it possible that every person around them failed them? Or is there something they are refusing to see about themselves? Jung believed that what people refuse to acknowledge within themselves often appears through projection. Projection happens when someone places their own unwanted qualities onto others. A person who cannot accept their own selfishness may constantly accuse others of being selfish. A person who cannot face their own insecurity may criticize everyone else's confidence. A person who cannot admit their own mistakes may become obsessed with finding mistakes in others. The strongest reactions often reveal the deepest hidden conflicts. This does not mean every criticism is projection. Sometimes people genuinely experience harmful behavior from others. The important thing is to observe patterns, not isolated moments. Look for emotional intensity. Look for repetition. Look for whether someone can accept any responsibility. Because trust is not built on perfection. Nobody is perfect. Trust is built on awareness. A person who can say, "I was wrong," is often safer than a person who always needs to prove they were right. The most trustworthy people are not those who never make mistakes. They are those who can face their mistakes without destroying others to protect their image. And this leads to the deeper truth behind these two signs. The question is not only whether someone can hide their true nature from you. The question is whether you are willing to see what is already being shown. Many people ignore warning signs because they are attached to the version of someone they hoped was real. They fall in love with potential. They trust promises more than patterns. They listen to words while ignoring repeated behavior. But human beings reveal themselves constantly, not through what they claim to be, through what they repeatedly do. The wisdom is learning how to observe without hatred, without fear, and without judgment. Because understanding human nature is not about becoming suspicious of everyone. It is about becoming aware enough to recognize who deserves access to your trust. There is another mistake people often make when deciding who deserves their trust. They focus on how someone makes them feel in the beginning, but they rarely pay attention to how that person behaves when the relationship becomes inconvenient. The beginning of any connection is often the easiest stage because people naturally present their most attractive qualities. They want to be understood, accepted, and valued. But trust is not built during moments of attraction, it is built during moments of pressure. A person's true nature appears when they have something to lose, when they are challenged, when they are disappointed, when they no longer receive immediate approval. This is why patience becomes one of the greatest tools for understanding people. Time reveals patterns that emotions often hide. A person can create a convincing impression for days, weeks, or even months, but maintaining a false image requires energy. Eventually, situations appear that demand a deeper response, and those responses reveal what exists beneath the surface. Carl Jung understood that human beings are complicated. He did not believe people were simply good or bad. He believed every person contained different parts of themselves, including qualities they were proud of and qualities they tried to hide. The goal was not to judge people quickly, but to understand the unconscious patterns influencing their behavior. This perspective changes the way you look at trust. Instead of asking, "Do I like this person?" ask, "How does this person consistently behave?" Instead of asking, "Do they say the right things?" ask, "Do their actions match their words when nobody is watching?" Because words create impressions. Patterns reveal character. A person may tell you they value honesty, but what happens when admitting the truth makes them look bad? A person may tell you they respect boundaries, but what happens when your boundary prevents them from getting what they want? A person may say they support your success, but what happens when your success highlights their own insecurity? The answers to these questions reveal far more than any promise. One of the most powerful observations you can make is how someone handles another person's vulnerability. When you share something personal, when you reveal a fear, a weakness, or an insecurity, you are giving someone access to a sensitive part of your inner world. A trustworthy person understands that access is a responsibility. They protect what you share. An untrustworthy person may collect your vulnerabilities as information to use later. At first, the difference may be invisible. They may appear caring. They may ask deep questions. They may seem interested in knowing the real you. But pay attention to what happens after the conversation. Do they use your personal struggles during arguments? Do they remind you of your weaknesses when they need power? Do they make jokes about things you shared privately? These moments reveal whether someone truly values connection or simply values information. Real intimacy requires emotional safety. Without emotional safety, closeness becomes a form of risk. Many people confuse someone knowing a lot about them with someone truly caring about them. But knowledge and compassion are not the same thing. Someone can know your history and still not respect your heart. This is why trust should be based on repeated evidence, not emotional intensity. A person who makes you feel excited is not automatically a person who makes you feel safe. A person who understands your pain is not automatically a person who will protect it. A person who speaks beautifully about loyalty is not automatically loyal. The strongest relationships are not created by perfect words. They are created by consistent behavior. Another important sign is how someone reacts when they are wrong. This may be one of the clearest windows into character. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone misunderstands situations. Everyone says things they later regret. The difference between people is not whether they fail. The difference is what they do after failure. A mature person can experience the discomfort of being wrong without needing to escape from it. They can apologize without adding excuses. They can listen without immediately defending themselves. An immature person often experiences being wrong as a threat to their identity. Instead of correcting the behavior, they protect their image. They explain, they blame, they change the subject. They attack the person who brought up the issue. Why does this happen? Because some people are more committed to appearing good than becoming better, and there is a major difference between the two. Someone focused on appearing good asks, "How can I avoid looking bad?" Someone focused on becoming better asks, "What can I learn from this?" Well, the first person protects the mask. The second person develops the self. Jung believed that personal growth requires facing uncomfortable truths about ourselves. The same principle applies when evaluating others. The people who are safest to trust are usually those who have learned how to face themselves honestly. They do not need to pretend they are flawless. They do not need to create an illusion of perfection. They understand that being human means having contradictions. They can admit weakness without collapsing. They can receive criticism without seeing it as an attack. They can celebrate another person's success without feeling personally diminished. This inner stability creates emotional safety around them. But there is an important lesson here. Learning these signs is not about becoming paranoid. It is not about analyzing every person you meet and searching for hidden danger. A life built on suspicion becomes its own prison. The purpose of awareness is not to close your heart, it is to protect your peace. There is a difference between being guarded and being wise. A guarded person expects betrayal everywhere. A wise person observes carefully before giving someone deeper access. Trust should be given gradually, like a plant that grows through consistent care. If someone repeatedly shows respect, honesty, accountability, and kindness, trust naturally becomes stronger. But if someone repeatedly shows manipulation, disrespect, defensiveness, and selfishness, ignoring those patterns will eventually cost you. The most painful lessons in life often come from ignoring what we already knew deep inside. Your intuition frequently notices patterns before your conscious mind can explain them. That uncomfortable feeling around someone may not always mean danger, but it is information worth exploring. The goal is not to fear people. The goal is to understand people. Because once you understand human behavior, you stop being controlled by appearances. You stop being impressed only by charm. You stop confusing confidence with character. You begin to look deeper. And that is where true wisdom begins. One of the most powerful lessons about trust is understanding that people reveal themselves most clearly in moments when they believe they are not being evaluated. When someone knows they are being observed, they can adjust their behavior. They can become more polite, more patient, and more considerate. But when there is no reward, no attention, and no benefit attached to their actions, their natural patterns become much easier to recognize. Watch how someone treats people who cannot offer them anything. Notice how they speak to service workers, strangers, employees, or anyone they consider less important than themselves. These moments can reveal something deeper than their words ever could. A person who is respectful only toward people with power is not demonstrating kindness. They are demonstrating strategy. True character does not change depending on the status of the person standing in front of you. A person with genuine compassion does not need an audience. They do not become kind because kindness improves their reputation. They are kind because it reflects who they are. This is one reason why charm can sometimes be misleading. Charm is a social skill. Character is a deeper quality. Someone can be extremely charming and still lack empathy, accountability, or integrity. They may know exactly what people want to hear. They may understand how to create a powerful first impression. But first impressions are moments of presentation. Character is what remains after the presentation fades. Many people have experienced this confusion. They meet someone who seems extraordinary. The person is confident, intelligent, funny, and emotionally engaging. They make conversations feel effortless. They create a sense of connection very quickly. But speed can sometimes hide depth. A deep relationship is not created by intensity alone. It is created through consistency. Someone can create a strong emotional impact in a short amount of time, but only time reveals whether that impact was built on authenticity or performance. This is why you should pay attention to consistency between different areas of someone's life. How do they act with friends compared to strangers? How do they act when they are winning compared to when they are losing? How do they act when they receive praise compared to criticism? The closer these different versions of themselves are, the more integrated the person usually is. But when someone has completely different personalities depending on who is watching, that difference deserves attention. Jung's understanding of the persona was not that having different social roles is wrong. Every person behaves differently at work, with family, and with close friends. That is normal. The concern appears when the difference is not about adapting, but about hiding. A healthy person has a flexible personality. An unhealthy person has a carefully protected image. The difference is subtle but important. A flexible person can adapt while remaining connected to their values. A person protecting an image changes themselves to maintain approval. This leads to another important sign: how someone handles situations where they do not receive recognition. Many people appear generous because their generosity is noticed. They help because helping makes them feel valuable. They give because giving creates admiration. But what happens when nobody knows? What happens when their kindness receives no praise? What happens when they cannot use their good actions to strengthen their image? That moment reveals motivation. A person who genuinely cares does not require constant recognition. Their actions come from internal values rather than external applause. But someone who depends on admiration may become frustrated when their efforts are not celebrated. They may remind others of what they have done. They may become resentful. They may feel ignored. The issue is not wanting appreciation. Everyone appreciates being valued. The issue is when appreciation becomes the reason behind everything someone does. Because when admiration disappears, so does their motivation. Another important observation is how someone responds to your growth. This is a sign many people overlook. A true friend, partner, or supporter does not only love who you are today, they also support who you are becoming. But some people become uncomfortable when you grow, because your growth changes the relationship dynamic. Maybe you become more confident. Maybe you set stronger boundaries. Maybe you pursue a new goal. Maybe you stop accepting treatment you once tolerated. A healthy person adjusts. An unhealthy person may try to pull you backward. They may say things like, "You have changed." Sometimes that statement is true. Growth is change. But the deeper question is whether they missed the old version of you because they loved you, or because the old version was easier for them to control. This is a powerful distinction. The people who truly care about you want you to become stronger, even if your growth requires the relationship to evolve. The people who only benefited from your old patterns often resist your transformation. Your growth becomes a mirror showing them what they have avoided in themselves. And this connects to one of Jung's deepest ideas. People often react strongly to qualities in others that challenge their own unconscious beliefs. Someone who has spent years avoiding personal growth may criticize someone who begins changing. Someone who fears independence may criticize someone who becomes self-sufficient. Someone who avoids emotional honesty may criticize someone who openly expresses feelings. The reaction is not always about you. Sometimes your transformation simply reveals something they are not ready to face. However, this does not mean you should dismiss every criticism. Growth requires humility. Not every person who challenges you is threatened by you. Sometimes others see things you cannot see. This is why wisdom requires balance. Do not believe every compliment. Do not reject every criticism. Observe the pattern behind both. Ask yourself, does this person want me to become better, or do they want me to remain comfortable for their benefit? Do they challenge me with care, or do they criticize me to maintain control? Do they celebrate my progress, or do they secretly compete with it? These questions reveal the difference between healthy connection and unhealthy attachment. The deepest form of trust comes from recognizing that nobody will always behave perfectly. Human beings are complicated. Even good people have moments of insecurity, fear, and emotional weakness. The goal is not to find someone who never struggles. The goal is to find someone who takes responsibility for their struggles. A person who can say, "I was afraid, so I reacted badly." A person who can say, "I hurt you, and I need to make it right." A person who can say, "I do not have all the answers, but I am willing to learn." These are the people who create safety. Because trust is not about finding someone without flaws. It is about finding someone who is honest about their flaws. And perhaps the most surprising truth is this: before learning how to recognize trustworthy people, you must learn how to become trustworthy yourself. The same patterns you observe in others exist within you. The moments when you become defensive, the moments when you seek approval, the moments when you avoid accountability. Self-awareness begins when you stop using psychology only as a tool to analyze others and start using it as a mirror to understand yourself. Because the person you have the most power to transform is not everyone around you, it is you. The final and perhaps most important lesson about trust is this: the way you choose people is often connected to the way you understand yourself. Many people spend years trying to discover who they can trust, but they rarely ask a deeper question. Why do I ignore certain signs when they appear? Because sometimes the greatest danger is not that someone hides their character from you. Sometimes the danger is that you see the truth but hope it will change. Hope is a beautiful human quality. It allows us to forgive, to believe in possibilities, and to see potential in others. But when hope becomes stronger than awareness, it can keep us attached to situations that repeatedly hurt us. There's a difference between believing someone can grow and pretending their current behavior does not matter. A person's potential is not the same as their pattern. You can believe someone has good qualities while still recognizing that their current actions are not healthy for you. This is emotional maturity. It means you can care about someone without allowing them unlimited access to your peace. You can understand someone's pain without becoming responsible for fixing them. You can forgive someone without pretending nothing happened. Trust requires compassion, but it also requires wisdom. Many people think being understanding means accepting everything, but true understanding includes recognizing boundaries. A person who truly respects themselves does not build relationships only from kindness. They also build them from self-respect. Because when you constantly ignore your own inner warnings, you teach yourself that your feelings do not matter. And over time, that creates a dangerous pattern. You begin to doubt your intuition. You begin explaining away behavior that hurts you. You begin searching for reasons why someone acts a certain way instead of accepting what their actions are showing you. Jung believed that the unconscious communicates through patterns, emotions, and reactions. Sometimes that uneasy feeling you experience around someone is not fear. It is your mind noticing information that your conscious thoughts have not fully processed yet. Maybe you noticed the way they dismiss other people's feelings. Maybe you noticed how they react when they are challenged. Maybe you noticed that their kindness disappears when they cannot benefit from being kind. Your intuition often collects these small pieces before your logical mind creates the complete picture. But intuition must be combined with observation. Feelings alone are not always enough. Patterns matter. Actions matter. Consistency matters. The person who deserves your trust is usually not the person who promises the most. It is the person who proves the most. They prove it through small moments. They keep their word when keeping it is inconvenient. They respect your boundaries when they disagree. They apologize when they make mistakes. They celebrate your happiness without needing to be the center of it. They protect your vulnerability instead of using it as a weapon. These qualities may seem ordinary, but they are actually rare because they require inner strength. It is easy to be kind when everything is going your way. It is harder to remain kind when you feel disappointed. It is easy to support someone when their success benefits you. It is harder to support them when their success reminds you of your own unfinished dreams. It is easy to appear patient when nobody challenges you. It is harder to remain patient when your ego feels threatened. This is why pressure reveals character. Pressure does not create someone's personality. It exposes what was already there. A person who has developed emotional awareness may struggle, but they eventually return to balance. A person who has avoided self-reflection often doubles down on unhealthy patterns. The difference is not whether emotions appear, the difference is whether emotions control the person. The most trustworthy people are not emotionless people. They are people who have learned how to take responsibility for their emotions. They can feel anger without becoming cruel. They can feel disappointment without becoming manipulative. They can feel insecurity without attacking others. They have learned that their inner world belongs to them, and that understanding creates freedom. When you recognize these signs in others, remember one final principle. Do not use awareness to build walls around your heart. Use awareness to build stronger foundations. The purpose of understanding human behavior is not to become suspicious of everyone, it is to become conscious. A conscious person does not blindly trust. A conscious person does not blindly distrust. They observe, they listen, they notice, they allow people to reveal themselves through time. And perhaps the greatest transformation happens when you stop asking only, can I trust this person? You begin asking a more powerful question. Does this relationship allow both people to become more authentic versions of themselves? Because the healthiest relationships are not built on perfection. They are built on honesty. They are built on two people who are willing to be seen clearly and still choose respect. The person you can trust is not someone who never disappoints you. Everyone disappoints someone eventually. The person you can trust is someone who cares about what happens after the disappointment. Do they repair? Do they listen? Do they learn? Do they grow? These moments define relationships far more than the easy moments ever will. A smile can create an impression. A promise can create hope. A beautiful conversation can create connection. But consistent behavior creates trust. So before you give someone complete access to your life, observe carefully. Watch how they respond when they are told no. Watch how they speak about people who cannot help them. Watch how they handle being wrong. Watch how they react to your growth. Watch how they behave when nobody is watching. These are the moments where the mask becomes thinner. These are the moments where character becomes visible. And remember something equally important. As you learn to recognize these qualities in others, continue developing them within yourself. Become the kind of person you hope to find. Become someone whose words and actions match. Become someone who can receive truth without defensiveness. Become someone who can admit mistakes without shame. Become someone who makes others feel safe being honest. Because the deepest wisdom is not simply learning who to trust. It is becoming a person who understands trust itself. Trust is not a single moment. It is not created by one conversation. It is not guaranteed by chemistry, attraction, or shared interests. Trust is a collection of hundreds of small choices. A choice to be honest, a choice to respect, a choice to care, a choice to remain consistent. And when you learn to recognize those choices, you stop being controlled by appearances. You stop being impressed only by charm. You stop confusing attention with affection. You stop confusing words with truth. You begin seeing people more clearly. And perhaps even more importantly, you begin seeing yourself more clearly. Because every relationship is also a mirror. The people you choose often reflect what you believe you deserve. The boundaries you create reflect how you value yourself. The trust you give reflects your understanding of your own worth. So choose carefully, not from fear, not from loneliness, not from the desire to be accepted. Choose from awareness, because the right people will not require you to abandon yourself in order to keep them. The right people will not punish you for having boundaries. The right people will not need you to become smaller so they can feel bigger. They will respect your truth because they respect their own. And that is the final sign of someone worth trusting. They do not simply make you feel accepted. They make you feel free.